And joining us now to talk about beef exports is Dan Halstrom, President and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Earlier, we talked about the incredibly robust export market we've had in 2018. What's led to some of these record-breaking numbers?
Yeah, we're looking at setting a new record again this in 2018. We're going to be all of $8.5 billion for global beef exports, and I think the key is it's really an amalgamation of many of the key markets, of course led by Japan, but Korea, if you had to pick out one, Korea with growth of over 45% has really been a home run this year. And one of the contributing factors there is that we have gotten 100% of Costco Korea's business into U.S. beef, whereas we were sharing it prior with Australia. Yeah. So this has been a big factor. But you look at some of the other markets, key markets, even Mexico and Canada continue to pull their weight. And you have Central America, South America. These regions are emerging, but they're not so new. They've been growing for the last 4 or 5 years. So to answer your question, it's really increased demand, increased beef per capita consumption in a lot of these countries, and we're positioning it well for our industry. Which
is great news for the industry. So let's talk 2019. What's ahead, and do you think we can anticipate continued growth?
Well, I do. I think we're set up well for increased growth in a lot of the key markets. That being said, we do have some headwinds. One is Japan, our largest value market. It's roughly $82, $83 a head. Attributable of our $320 a head is Japan, by far number one. But we are behind the 8 ball there with some of our key competitors because they're in the CPTPP now. Right. And they currently have a 12% duty advantage, and that number gets bigger over the course of time. So the industry is aligned. We've made our concern aware, very aware to USDA and USTR that we have to get some sort of an agreement with Japan sooner rather than later. But issues like that aside, the dynamics are set up well for a good 2019.
Okay, let's talk about China. Clearly it's in the news every day, and my question to you is, why is it so important to beef producers that we finally resolve this issue with China?
Well, I think, the agreement that we have right now is good in the fact that we do have access, albeit limited access. We do have restrictions regarding hormone-treated cattle, regarding beta agonists, and some other items as well. So I think trying to get this in a more open, a more science-based agreement would be good for all producers, because we can make the current agreement work, but the payback's going to be much, much smaller share. And if we can get a science-based agreement that the industry can get behind in total, then that's just that much more opportunity. And I'll tell you, the U.S. beef that's gotten into China, what we're hearing with our team, acceptance is great. They love the grain-fed. They don't have a grain-fed alternative, high-end grain-fed alternative like U.S. beef. So the issue is not the quality. The issue is getting an agreement that's sustainable long-term.
So oftentimes we talk about markets like Japan and Korea and even China, but you've said before when you've been on this show, let's not forget some of the other markets that really comprise a lot of opportunity for the beef industry. What are some of those markets?
Exactly, yeah. I think a good example is Central and South America. Those two regions have really come up from a very low base in the last 3 or 4 years. And I'll give you some examples. Peru, very big market for beef variety meats. A lot of tripe goes to Peru from the U.S. You look at markets like El Salvador, Guatemala, Panama. By themselves, any one market's not all that big, but you add up the region, Central and South America now is your 5th or 6th largest region for U.S. beef exports globally. So it's really come on, and I think that has potential to grow even further. But then you can kind of fast forward to some brand new markets, and Africa being one of those. You got 1 billion people on a continent with the youngest demographic in the world, and you're starting to see evidence of the middle class starting to finally emerge. And for example, Angola, South Africa, Ghana, we're seeing beef variety meats go in there. We're also seeing some very small quantities of chilled beef going in for food service, for high-end restaurants. And this is how business starts in these markets. It's small, but it's promising for the future.
Well, with exports driving over $300 or $320 of value, it continues to be a significant part of the profit equation for all of us in the U.S. beef industry. So I appreciate everything that you and your team do. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
To learn more about the work of the U.S. Meat Export Federation and its efforts to enhance U.S. beef demand, visit their website at usmef.org.